we're back with The Coming Thing, and it's been a long time. Sorry about that. We do the show. We need something on the quick to fill in. I neglected to bring the files I recorded with Mr. Fix-It for one of our other podcasts back home with me. It's still on his computer, and I don't know if I want to deal with the headache of trying to manipulate that over the internets. So we're going to go ahead and drop this in for this week, and then hopefully next week we can get another spawnometer out, because that one's also due. Not nearly as due as this one, but also due. The episode we're going to cover this week is No Man's Land, directed by Kim Manners, written by Tom Chehek. This was originally air dated September 10th, 1993. So this is the third episode that was aired. It wasn't the third episode in the continuity, the writing of the episodes, the filming of the episodes, but we're going through the show by order of air date, since I think both of us watched the show roughly on first run. But it is a little weird because there's an episode that was actually filmed to be the second that got pushed all the way back to the fifth, and so I'm trying to be wary that at some point we're going to have to circle around to that and see if it fits all that well.
Episode 3, No Man's Land. It starts off with Brisco County entering a city that's on fire. He talks to one of the folks who are rescuing people from a burning building and asks them, hey, who did this? And he basically describes 3 shabby-looking dudes that Brisco identifies as the Swill gang, Bill, Phil, and Will. And he's been going town to town, basically chasing these dudes through these burning cities. And then right before one of the buildings explodes, Brisco rides through and scoops the kid up on a horse in a cool little stunt trick.
She was off trying to find her dolly, and the dad was spending his time telling Brisco what was going on, and he's like, wait, where's my kid? And Brisco stops him and hops on his horse and rides in to scoop up the girl. And I liked how she's like, afterwards, I need to go to the bathroom. Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah. And then from there we go to Socrates' office, and he calls in Lord Bowler, which is a change of pace. He figured he'd be going after Brisco, and this is the same question Bowler has for him. And he said basically they're trying to track down this weapon that he can't tell anybody about, and he'll give him $2,000 to track it down, but he can't tell anybody. And Bowler basically retorts with, well, you can give me $2,000 to find it, but it's going to cost $3,000 for me not to talk about it. So they negotiate $3,000. Then he shows him the plans, and it's obviously familiar to us. It's a tank. Lord Bowler is looking at it upside down and doesn't know what he's looking at because there are no tanks, folks. So he says, no problem, I'll go get it for $3,000. They call it a mobile battle wagon. Brisco catches the Swill brothers. They had to stop because one of them had intestinal discomfort. He had to pull off the road to take a pit stop.
Yeah, one of his brothers cooked roadkill. He wasn't even able to identify what the creature was, and apparently it didn't sit well with him.
Yeah, he's like, that was rabbit, right? And he's like, I couldn't tell. It was so mangled up or whatever. So home dude, and then of course the guy asks for a catalog that he can read while he's doing his business because it's going to take a while. So it's a pretty cool shot because he's looking through like a periscope, and he's kind of looking around for, to make sure they're waiting for another brother, right? And we don't know that Gil, right?
Yeah, we don't know that time though.
I could have sworn they mentioned Gil.
Maybe they did, but I thought maybe so.
So he's looking around with the periscope, and as he's sort of circling their perimeter, suddenly it's Brisco's face right in front of him, and he pulls a gun on him, tells him to get out of the thing. So while he's holding the Swill brothers hostage or at gunpoint, he's surprised by Gil, the brother they were waiting on, who's played by Judson Scott, who I only knew from The Wrath of Khan. And apparently, according to IMDb, he wasn't even credited for this role, but as soon as I saw him, I'm like, that's the dude from Wrath of Khan.
I didn't know who he was. I just knew that he was a more handsome-looking guy than any of the other brothers, and I'd have sworn that he had been in soap operas, and sure enough, he was in General Hospital back in the mid-'80s. So, but yeah, I didn't recognize him from Wrath of Khan, but once I saw it on the IMDb page, I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. He was actually, this dude, I know must have seen him and stuff, even though I didn't recognize him, because he did like all the 80s shows I watched as a kid. He did a Voyagers, he did a TJ Hooker, he did a Matt Houston, Dukes of Hazzard. He was on the VTV series, which is the thing I should have known him best for, except that I bailed on the TV series pretty quickly. I only really liked the miniseries. He did A-Team. He's in the Colbys. Shout out to you, Star Trek The Next Generation. Maybe that's how he got on the show in the first place, is this show has 2 Next Generation alumni, which we'll get to later on. But yeah, that dude got around.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even like in Charmed or something like that. He was in a bunch of...
And there's another connection is Billy Drago was in Charmed, and then he turns up in Charmed as well as Necron. Yeah. So I assume that must be another one of those demons that they fought, which is also the role Billy Drago would have played.
So I'm with you. Like I saw all this stuff he was in, and I'm like, I should know all of this stuff, but I don't ever recognize this dude. But I saw the still of him in Wrath of Khan.
Who was Palantine in Blade? I don't remember that character.
Yeah, I don't either. I saw him when I was in Blade. I'm like, oh, he's in Blade. I'm like, I don't know who this is. He must have been like one of the old dudes standing around, right?
Maybe, or I mean, they had some of the Eurotrash vampire guys, and he's got good bone structure, so it might have been
right. Exactly.
Well, the other brothers, you've got Dennis Forrest and Jeremy Roberts, and in the case of Dennis Forrest, he has very unique features, kind of the bug eyes, the long hair, and everything. So I assumed he must have been the heavy in some action movie I saw back in the day. But really, I didn't see much of anything else that he'd been in. But as it happens, both Dennis Forrest and Jeremy Roberts, #1 IMDb, known for our roles from the Jim Carrey movie The Mask from 1994. So maybe that's the other thing I knew these dudes from. And of course, the older brother, the wackier brother, the roadkill cooking brothers, Tracy Walter. This guy we all know. That's Bob the Goon.
Yeah, that dude was very familiar to me.
Did you have a Bob the Goon when you were a kid?
What? Oh, I don't know what that means.
Okay, when the Batman movie came out, they of course had action figures, and they were basically the same model as Superpowers. They were similarly sculpted and everything. And, 89, all the kids had all the action figures. Of course, you had to have a Batman, you had to have a Joker, and then there was also Bob the Goon. And he's the dude, he's the unshaven guy with the long hair who runs around in the standard Joker uniform that they had with the jackets, and he had a hat, and of course he's a balding guy, and so he's just this goon. And everybody's like, who the heck would want a Bob the Goon action figure of all the things? But my brother had one, and that was actually like my favorite one of those figures, because I didn't really care about having action adventures with Batman and the Joker necessarily, although I got a lot of action with the Joker just being a bad guy, but you could do whatever you wanted with Bob the Goon. And so one of my characters that I played for years and years was based on Bob the Goon.
He was the dude. He takes his gun and he kills, right?
Yeah,
the Joker just shoots him because he was, and he's like to make himself feel better or whatever.
Yeah, he basically I think he was screwing up a few times. He was like the main guy who was Joker's henchman in the Batman movie, and then finally the Joker asks to borrow his gun and shoots him with his own gun.
Bob, remember, you are my #1 guy. That's that Bob, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no? Maybe, but that Batman was Jack Palance you were doing.
But I thought that was
I think that Jack Nicholson was playing, who became the Joker, I think he was the #1 guy. I don't think Bob was his #1 guy. Bob might have been Joker's #1 guy, but he would have been whoever Jack Palance was playing.
No, I thought he did it to him later.
Oh, maybe so. Maybe he was doing an impersonation or something. It's been a long time.
That's what it was. No. He was doing it ironically because he had that said to him.
Ah, okay. You know what? This would be a really good year for us to rewatch the Batman movie. We haven't gotten around to any of our review movies that we were going to do this year, and that's one of them we ought to get around to. It is the 30th anniversary.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Let's do it. Anyway, we continue on.
He was in Conan the Destroyer too. If Mr. Fix-It was involved with the show at all, he'd be all over that.
When he's surprised by Gil, he tumbles down a mountain, and they're all just firing guns at him as he tumbles down the side of a mountain, lands on some railroad tracks, and he's knocked out cold. And as he kind of starts to come to a little bit, he sees a rail car coming towards him, and as it comes into focus, it's the rocket car from the pilot, driven by the
Professor Wickwire, John Astin.
Dr. Wickwire, John Astin, who did you just tweet this out when I got online? How did I see this? That I was like, is this the internet listening to me? Knowing what I'm watching?
I didn't know what our hashtag was for this show, and it had been so long since we'd done an episode that I was trying to dig up the social media stuff. And so in trying to find it, I stumbled upon this acknowledgement from Brisco County himself, Bruce Campbell, of the great work of John Astin in the role of Professor Wickwire. And given that Billy Drago has passed away since we last did an episode, I was like, oh yeah, let's not forget about the late John Astin, not realizing John Astin's still alive. I thought John Astin died years ago. I don't know, maybe I was confusing him with the character he played in Night Court. He played Harry's dad. That's probably my favorite role of his, and I'm feeling much better now. And I think that the character died at some point over the course of the Night Court series, and I think in my brain I just conflated the actor with the character, but John Astin is 89 years old. He's still very much alive.
Shout out John Astin. Keep on keeping on there, buddy.
He'll be celebrating his 90th birthday next year, so keep an eye out for March the 30th, 2020.
I'm glad you fully researched that and didn't just drop in the podcast that he passed away too. You didn't call him like the late great John Astin. That would have been embarrassing.
Where is John Astin though? I have not seen him in anything in ages. I guess he must have retired.
Bro, he's 89. Give him can he not rest? Goodness gracious.
Has he not given the world enough? Yeah.
I mean, maybe he's waiting for Addams Family 9 to get made. I don't know. Addams Family, the next generation.
He worked last year.
Really?
I mean, here's the thing. He didn't do anything after the year 2006, but he apparently came out of retirement just last year to voice Uncle Dudley, which I assume is a relation to Captain Marvel, for Justice League Action, the cartoon.
Whoa. So, yeah, he can do some voice acting. That's cool. So he's almost hit by the rocket. He gets stopped in time. He rolls off the tracks just in time as it stops
Eventually,
a little bit late.
Comet was trying to help him roll over too. That was one of the least suspenseful, most overly drawn out roles in cinematic history, though. It was driving me nuts. Like, dude, roll, don't roll, just do what you're going to do. They spent like 5 minutes on this thing.
Yeah. It was, and then like they keep flashing back to the rocket car as he's trying to like break it, and then he would roll over, and Comet would bump in, and he'd roll back, and he'd roll back over, and then it'd go back to the rocket car. Yeah, it was a little much.
It even seemed like Bruce Campbell was struggling, and okay, am I rolling? Am I not rolling? How am I making this continue to happen? I guess maybe they just need to fill in a certain amount of space before the commercial break. I don't know.
Yeah, the professor jumps off the rocket, and he is there to aid Brisco. So from there we go to Bowler, who's tracked down the tank, and he's like, man, this is gonna be the easiest $3,000 I ever made, because he basically just climbs up in a tree and drops down on top of it. But he can't get the hatch open, and then he starts taking his revolver and he's shooting at the hatch, and it won't open. He takes a shotgun and he shoots it won't open, and then he looks up just in time to see a tree branch coming, and it clotheslines him off the top of the tank, and he rolls off. Wah, wah. From there we have the professor who's carting. He's hooked his rocket cart up to Comet, and now he's using it as sort of like a horse-drawn carriage with Brisco slung over the back, and they're headed to some ghost town looking for help for Brisco. He explains basically he's left his wife, left the farm and everything, and he's been flying around in the rocket car giving 5-cent rocket rides, which will be a pun they use later, and that he's making plenty of money and he doesn't need women anymore because he can fly around, blah blah blah, or he can go around and make his business like this. From there they make it to the city, and it's called No Man's Land. So they're like, oh, No Man's Land, well, that's weird, this is supposed to be a ghost town, there's people here. And that's when he realized it's not No Man's Land, it's No Man's Land, because the city is 100% filled with women and ran by women, and is immediately greeted by someone who tells him basically they got to turn around and leave because it's no man's land.
I do believe I've rented a few installments of that video series.
Oh my goodness. So same. So from there we go to anyway. So the sheriff intervenes and says, no, you know what? He can see the doctor, and she notices when she grabs his gun that it looks really familiar to her, and she's all like, "Who is this man?" And the professor's like, "Well, it's Brisco County Jr." And then at this point, we all recognize that the sheriff is Tasha Yar or Denise Crosby, right? Yep. Tasha Yar from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Fame.
By the way, while we're on this, are you looking forward to Picard? Did you watch the trailer?
I am. I have not watched that trailer yet because I was going to show it to Miss Mac to try and get her excited about it, although she has no prior knowledge of anything Star Trek related. But I don't really know if you're going to need it too much for the series.
I don't know, because my whole thing is watching the trailer. I didn't really know what a Picard TV show was going to be. You know, I thought it might just be him like on a farm talking to people. I thought maybe it was going to be like a really El Cheapo, streaming series or something. But apparently it is going to be like a full-blown continuation of all the TV shows from the 90s and 80s and I guess early 2000s. So it's everything is fair game. So this is going to be the first time we've seen any continuation of those shows that a lot of us had a great affection for back in the day, since before the J.J. Abrams reboot, since before Enterprise. I don't think they've done anything with these characters since the last film of the Next Generation cycle, Nemesis, back in the mid 2000s. Yeah, so
okay, so I guess I'll check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but you're going to see a few characters in that you might not be expecting that were on those shows.
Oh, make it so, y'all.
But who you won't necessarily be seeing is Tasha Yar, since she made a point of getting herself whacked at the end of the first season of Next Generation, and I think regretted that decision for the rest of her career.
Yeah, this was when she was. So I watched Star Trek: The Next Generation as it came out as a young man, as a child, and dude, when she died, that was like a big deal. Like I couldn't, because she was a flat out regular cast member. She was part of the crew, and then just they killed her, and it was like, okay, so when does she come back? You know what I mean? And it's like,
Right.
no, she's dead. Like they killed off a character in their show. And it was like, what is going on? Now, it wasn't like she was a fan favorite or anything, but it was still kind of a big deal that they killed her off. It was very, I had no idea. It was because basically she was asking to be written out of the show because her character had stagnated. So yeah, you're right. She was probably like, oh, that's a mistake.
Yeah, well, I mean, she went off and she did Pet Sematary, and that was a pretty reasonable hit. And then for the most part, didn't have anything else. I mean, she went back to Next Generation several times. She played a Romulan, I think, at one point, if I remember correctly. And, she did the Trekkies documentaries and stuff. And it's like, for somebody who is so thirsty to get out of Star Trek, she sure worked hard to get back into it as often as she possibly could.
Well, I read that apparently she was originally cast to be Deanna Troi. And then they yanked that role and gave her Tasha Yar. So I guess that could probably make you pretty bitter.
Maybe.
Because Deanna Troi was a huge part of that show from Jump.
She was.
Although part of it was because she was incredibly attractive too. But I mean, Denise Crosby back then was pretty good looking too. I don't know.
I don't know if she actually was in one of Chris Isaac's videos from that time period where she's dancing sultry and gets into her underwear and stuff. It's like, all right, Tasha Yar, you can compete. But I cannot see her in the role. I can't see her as Troy. She's just Marina Sirtis had that bleeding empathy that was necessary for that role, and kind of one of the defining characteristics of Crosby is she's not the most emotive actress, and so it kind of made sense for her to be the security guard. I get why they would have swapped that out, because I don't see her working as Troy.
Oh no, I totally agree. In my opinion, it worked out for the best for the show. But but I can also see from her point of view as an actress who watches the role she was originally cast for explode, and you're sitting there thinking, and then watch her character basically be written out of the show without being written out of the show, and then she's just like, get me out of here. You know what I mean? That's one of those when keeping it real goes wrong moments,
Right.
But I can't say I totally blame her.
But at the same time,
hindsight's definitely 20/20.
Yeah, and the show ran long enough to where every major character in that show got some marks, and that's why so many of the characters are beloved. But you'd also have to sit around for, what was it, 8 years that show ran? So yeah. I don't know if she had that kind of time. I do remember, though, she was on a short-lived show that I really enjoyed called Key West with Fisher Stevens. And she was another recurring character on that. I think she was the mayor of the town or something. And they were like mysteries or something. It was on Fox, and I remember really enjoying that. But it's been so long, I can't even really tell you what the show was about. But she was good in that.
You just cut out for like 30 seconds, but I did hear you mention Key West, the show. Mm-hmm. I watched that, too. Oh, yeah. I like that show.
No, what was it about, though? I don't even remember.
I have no clue. I cannot remember. I just remember really liking that show and was disappointed when it ended, but I couldn't tell you what it was freaking about.
Revenge of the 90s over here.
Tomorrow, something extraordinary is happening to television, presenting the world premiere of the new Fox Tuesday night. First, from actor-director Peter Horton comes the premiere of a new series.
Just this once, stand or fall. I've got to make it on my own.
About the most exciting and challenging time in a person's life.
You're the first Morrissey ever to go to college.
Class of '96.
Let me guess, you're a freshman.
Then, after Seamus O'Neill won the lottery, he went looking for the perfect place to live out his fantasies. What he found was the wildest.
It's magic here.
The weirdest.
This is spooky.
Most wonderful place on Earth.
Thought I'd give myself to you.
Key West.
Life is good.
Class of '96 and Key West on the new Fox Tuesday night. This Tuesday.
Key West is an American drama series set in Key West, Florida. 13 episodes out on Fox from January to June 1993. Main character is Seamus O'Neill, played by Fisher Stevens, a factory worker from New Jersey who dreams of becoming a writer. When he wins the lottery, he uses his newfound wealth to move to Key West to pursue his writing career, where his idol Ernest Hemingway had lived. Seamus finds the island inhabited by eccentrics. He tries to get a job for the Meteor, the local newspaper, wishing to relive the life of its most famous employee, Ernest Hemingway. This brings him into conflict with the paper's editor, Roosevelt Cole, Ivory Ocean, who remarks, "You want to report on the Spanish Civil War?" Eventually, Seamus is hired on a probationary period. In a later episode, it was revealed Seamus is once again poor as his lottery winnings were seized due to taxation and multiple unpaid debts, and it will be several years before his next annuity check resumes. Seamus then decides to put everything into writing, money worries or not, and then they list a number of other actors on the show. So I can definitely see why I wouldn't remember the show anymore, especially since it was a 60-minute show as well. But I guess it was another one of those Northern Exposure-y kind of attempted things. Oh, wow. Hold on. That's Brian Thompson was on that show. Yeah, do you remember Brian Thompson? He was the serial killer in Cobra.
No, but I remember Jennifer Tilly was in the show. Didn't she play like the island prostitute or something like that, or the island?
Jennifer Tilly
something?
was in that. Yes.
Yeah, and I remember the Hemingway part. I was going to say that before you started recapping it. I remember it had something to do with Ernest Hemingway. I forgot about the lottery winnings because I don't know if Jennifer Tilly was like the island prostitute or she was sort of like. I just remember he would always go to her for like.
You managed to get the phrase island prostitute in this show already a couple of 3 times now. So congratulations on that alone.
Cast. I'm a legal machine. Yeah, but I remember like he would always go to her, and it was like they were like hashing out. She was almost like his therapist in a way, also. But I don't remember exactly. Damn it! We got to start a Key West cast, the Diablo Front and Legal Machine. What was her character?
I'm pretty sure there weren't any other podcasts who've covered that territory, so at least we would completely own that particular bit of real estate.
Yeah, nobody. Savannah Sumner. You can edit all this out while I search because now it's going to drive me insane. And nothing gives any detail. I'd have to start reading like the full-on wiki.
Nah.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. Let me see.
We've already devoted 4 more minutes of podcasting to this show than anybody else ever has.
In addition to Stevens, Jennifer Tilly, Denise Crosby, and Brian Thompson led a large ensemble cast as the town's high-class prostitute, conservative mayor, and eccentric sheriff, respectively. So thank you very much. She was the island prostitute. High class. But like I said, I don't think he ever went to her for her prostitution services. She was like
anything wrong with that. I mean, if he's got the cash and she's got she's got to earn a living too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was going to her and was basically, she was like his therapist or whatever. We'd go to her for advice. But again, this is me trying to remember this show on like one watching. How long ago was this show come out?
30 years.
30 freaking years ago. Good Lord, folks. We can move on.
I'm not sure we can.
Oh my God. I'm still waiting for our Parker Lewis Can't Lose podcast. But,
that would be nice.
Brisco wakes up and the professor's sort of explaining where they're at. And then he says, he's got to get out and go out on the town. And he's like, why? What are you doing? He's like, they're very curious about my rocket. So from there, the Swill gang shows up to No Man's Land.
Yeah, by the way, Wickwire was very heavy into the innuendo this whole time too, because they took him into a bedroom and told him, being on flat on his back is probably a good place to be in No Man's Land. He's visited by Dr. Quintano, medicine woman. Lots of goofy jokes and innuendos and asides and such on this one.
Okay, so from there, there's a short. They show the Swill gang showing up. They immediately just barge into a bar and toss the woman who's running the bar out. From there, we have like a little snippet where Brisco and the sheriff are sort of talking about, she's talking about how, the women are here, they've built this. And he's like, no, that's great. He goes, no, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great that you guys came out here and you did your own thing. And then he gives a little, he doesn't actually say the coming thing, but he talks about how there's a change coming and he's out there trying to find it. So I wish they would have probably spent a little more time on that scene and less time of him trying to roll off the train tracks, but it was there. So anyway, somebody busts in and goes, so a bunch of men took over the bar. So the sheriff goes down there. They immediately turn the tables on her. Gil takes her sheriff badge and is now he's sheriff. Which isn't that a trope they already did in this show? Wasn't that on the pilot
where the bad guys pretend to be a sheriff?
No. Yeah, no. It was the last episode where his old childhood buddy was actually running the town and he basically stole the sheriff badge from the sheriff. So that's back-to-back episodes where they use that.
But in their defense, they were run out of sequence. This is the release order, not the production order.
I suppose that's true, but release order, we're 3 episodes in and you've used
the same bit like 2 consecutive episodes. It's problematic. Yeah.
Stealing a sheriff badge and masquerading as a sheriff. So,
by the way, small world that Tracy Walter was in City Slickers with Jack Palance, and he also appears on an episode or 2 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So it all comes around.
Man, In a lot of ways, though, Star Trek The Next Generation is the Kevin Bacon of TV shows, of sci-fi shows. Like, everybody was in Star Trek The Next Generation.
I think a better question would be, why weren't you, this actor over here, why weren't you in an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation?
Yeah.
You had hundreds of opportunities.
Whoopi Goldberg had a recurring role. What were you doing?
So we can connect Meghan McCain to The Next Generation in one relation.
Goodness gracious. Okay, so from there, Bowler comes into town looking for the tank. This is everybody's kind of all starting to converge on No Man's Land, if you haven't noticed. So the sheriff comes out, the Gil posing as a sheriff, and he's like, "Hey man, what can I do you for?" or whatever. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm looking for something." And so they get to talking in the bar. He's like, "I can't tell you about it." And they get to talking in the bar, and suddenly the sheriff knows exactly what he's talking about. And he's like, "I didn't tell you that." And he's like, "Well, you also didn't tell me it's got a 35 millimeter cannon and a 8-inch steel."
I lost you at 8-inch steel.
Yada yada yada. Bowler gets captured.
Well, I like too that Bowler's trying to like brush his hair to get to his shotgun, and the guy's already drawn on him by then, so he probably needed to move a little quicker.
So Brisco has moved in and he's freed the sheriff, and from there you don't really need to go into it. There's a bunch of basically home alone shenanigans, since nobody has firearms, because it's like a city policy. They take away visitors' firearms. So, and she's got a key where she's locked it, so they're trying to get the key, but the Swill gang has the key, so they're trying to find creative ways to knock all the Swill gang off one by one, including a like really weirdly awkward. There's two super awkward scenes. One when they capture the sheriff and they're like, "What are we gonna do with her?" And they go, "Whatever we want." And it's like, oh, that's creepy.
Yep.
And then later on, to catch one of the Swill gang, there's a woman bathing in a hot tub, and the Swill gang dude comes in and is just like immediately starts taking his clothes off. Like that, it's not. He didn't even like for a second like build any suspense here. He's just and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll be gentle." And they're like, "Oh, because he's going to rape this poor woman."
Yeah, we've talked already about how this show kind of pushed some borders, particularly when it comes to the innuendo. And for the most part, we're okay with it because a little something for the grown-ups, a little something for the kids. But this one, besides some really bad Me Too moments in this thing, the fact that they explicitly reference incest in this episode several times was like, my dudes, this is on Sundays at 6:00. It's family viewing. That's the whole selling point. Maybe dial back the incest jokes, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, the Swill guys are talking about one of their uncles or one of their cousins, and like, didn't he marry Aunt Maud? And he was like, I thought he married his mother. And he was like, that's what I said. It's like, okay.
And when he does show up, they're like, how's your mother? And he just like they just let it linger in the air for a minute there. It's like, this is not comfortable for anybody. Please move on.
Because remember the incest joke from earlier? Yuck, yuck, yuck. So it turns out the woman in the hot tub is there on purpose to lure the guy, and that Brisco basically told her to stay in there. And when the dude came in, he knocks the guy out. Mm. So it kind of made it a little less creepy, but it was definitely kind of creepy. She wasn't helpless. She was in there on purpose to bait the guy. Okay, I get it. Whatever.
You saw a fair amount of her in that tub.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And we'll leave it at that.
Reminded me of the video series I rented back in the day.
Oh, my God. Lots of parallels in this No Man's Land episode.
Lots of parallels in that series I've rented back in the day.
Yeah, oh my goodness. So Brisco finds a photo of the sheriff when he's digging around in one of the houses they're in, and it's sheriff, and it's not the sheriff at the time. She's in a photo with the Bly gang as one of the members of the Bly gang, and he's like, what the hell? So he basically says, hey, look, she's like, you weren't supposed to find that or whatever, and he's like, well, look, I'm just letting you know, I don't hate anybody, but I'm taking everybody in who's associated with the Bly gang. So when we get out of this, I'm taking you in. And she was like, well, that's not what your father said. And he was like, what? You know my father? And basically, Briscoe's father, Brisco County Senior, folks, keep up. Basically, when he arrested the Bly gang and put them on the train from the pilot episode, he let her go and said, basically, I'm going to give you a second chance. You're not an evil person. You need a second chance to make a better life, which is how she eventually ended up in No Man's Land and started this sort of not utopian world, but like a women's only. We're going to make this place the best we can. Let's boot all the junk men out.
Yeah. Well, it's not even so much about booting guys out, because they make a big point of this being a ghost town. The whole reason why the Spill brothers showed up is because this was like their hideout, and suddenly there's this town built up around there. I think it's more about these were women who wanted the opportunity to forge some kind of destiny for themselves without being under anyone's thumb, and so they just made their own town. But that's one of the things that is a little bit weird about this episode, given all the weird, squicky sexual stuff in here. For a monosexual town, this is the most heteronormative bunch of women women ever. You know, even the big burly like blacksmith women are still clearly interested in guys, and it's like, really? You're all okay, sure, oh sure, okay. Just with everything else that they're getting away with, there's not even a hint of any kind of homosexuality in this town.
Yeah. So anyway, let's just wrap the episode up. The tank then rolls into town. Gil jumps in and they just start blowing the heck out of the city. I mean, they're like they show two women up on the second floor and they're firing shotguns at him, and he just blows the top off this building. And then the original woman who had come out and tried to throw Brisco out of town and was also the head of the bar that the Swill gang had kicked out, she basically comes out in the middle of the street with a shotgun and is just like, not my city, not our city, we built this city, with, you know, country music or whatever. And so she's unloading this shotgun, and, you know, as this thing turns right towards her and fires.
Definitely the most fashionable person in the town. I really like the whole vest thing she had going on there, the pants combo and everything. She nice hair. She's very fashionable for a random town in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it worked. The hair especially, I thought, really worked with the ensemble.
She could have rode her horse to Melrose Place from out of there.
Oh, dude, totally was ready. She was about to be the new neighbor on Melrose Place, 100%.
By the way, the actress is Brooke Susan Parker, who was in the movie Strange Days, although I do not remember her in the movie, but you know, she did a lot of 90s stuff too.
So as soon as she's about to get shot by this tank, Bowler jumps in and saves her. That was a nice little moment. Anyway,
the funny thing is he does save her, and she resents him because obviously this was like a suicide march on her part. And then later on, when things settle down, she actually gives him a hug and thanks him, and it's a nice platonic thing. It was pretty sweet, actually.
So from there, basically, they have the idea like, look, Brisco says to Bowler, "This is the future of warfare, Bowler," and then he comes to the realization we need to fight the future with the future. In other words, they're going to take the rocket car, fire it at the tank, which they do. It blows up. The town is saved, so Brisco goes to move on, and the professor has one last innuendo before he leaves because he's like, "Come on, professor, let's go." And the professor's like, "Oh, I think I'm going to stay here and fix my rocket." And Brisco's like, "Your rocket? It's blown to pieces." And he's like, "Oh, I think the German
blacksmith ladies,
I think they can pound it back into shape." Wah, wah, wah. Roll credits.
He gives him his card and says, he gives Denise Crosby his card and says, whatever's left of Professor Wickwire, send here.
Right. Forgot there was another one. They went for another, or whatever is left of him.
By the way, one of the blacksmiths is Corinna Everson, who is a really like a bodybuilder. And besides the fact that she was also in Charmed, she also had a recurring role on Hercules: The Legendary Journeys. So we're going for peak 90s here.
Yeah, I recognized her from somewhere.
Possibly, too, there's a few people in this show that were on Natural Born Killers.
Really? Mm-hmm. Looks like she was in Double Impact. Maybe I remember her from Double Impact, too. Yeah. But definitely from Hercules.
By the way, Natural Born Killers, another movie that isn't popping up on these Quentin Tarantino best of lists that suddenly started springing up around the release of his movie.
But what was his part in Natural? Did he just direct it?
No, he wrote it, didn't he?
Didn't he write?
He was only one. It was his story. It was his original story.
Maybe it doesn't fit the criteria to make a list. I don't know.
Well, me and Mr. Fix-It had a whole side argument while we were recording the other day about where's the true romance in these top lists of Tarantino movies, too. What, that doesn't count? It's a very Tarantino movie.
How come when I go to Natural Born Killers and I search there he is. Okay, sorry. I was spelling Tarantino wrong. That's why. It's based on his original screenplay, but was heavily revised by Oliver Stone, so that must be why. Anyway, we knocked out. Hey, welcome to Natural Born Killers cast. I'm Illegal Machine with me.
Oh, yeah, all kinds of spinoffs. Yeah. Like, for instance, the one of the Swill brothers, the one I keep referencing, was also in an episode of Justice League where he played somebody who's related to Eclipso, which he was actually, I took sound clips of him and put it into one of my episodes of the Idle Head of Diablo podcast, and one of them was in something that he was also in the episode of Monsters, which I referenced in the first episode of Zombie Cast, the duration of Dawn of the Dead podcast. So this is the nexus of all our podcasts in this one particular episode of the coming thing.
Yeah, lots of random people in this episode. So anyway, what did you think of this episode?
It's fun. It's not one of my favorites. What I kept flashing to is you and Cody Scheibe both double teamed me recently, wondering how I could have not liked Stranger Things season 3 at all and not want to watch the show anymore, and even like how could I have even liked it less than season 2? And a big part of the problem is that the first 2 seasons of that show were all about establishing that this is a reality that's recognizable. There's like a Stephen King thing where it's the world with this 1 or 2 elements that turn everything upside down. And then when you have a season where they've got a mall that was built by evil Russians that goes down for miles and nobody knows about it, and all this like science stuff that doesn't make any sense and it isn't explained by the supernatural, and it, like literally me and Paquita would watch it for like 5 or 10 minutes at a stretch, get hung up on science stuff and just not be able to continue with it. Besides the fact that they're constantly regressing and the characters aren't progressing, and everybody stops and decides to have a 5-minute conversation about the quality of new Coke with the product tie and everything else, just couldn't stand anymore. So that's a show that is supposed to be a recognizable reality, particularly one that I grew up in, and so I'm particularly invested in that being accurately reflected. Whereas this is a cartoon. There's no basis of reality on this. It's very clear. We've got tanks, we've got rocket ships, we've got nonsense physics. We've got a bit where Brisco and Denise Crosby stuff pillows into a bed under the assumption that the safe assumption would be that they would stuff the pillows. So even though in all the movies we always see them shoot the bed anyway, in this one instance they don't shoot the bed and they're actually hiding the bed. They jump out of the bed and beat up the guy, which only works because they set up the joke. You know, it's Wile E. Coyote kind of stuff. But because that's what this show is premised on, it's supposed to be a cartoon. I don't have any problem with any of that stuff. I think it's fun, but this is definitely turn off your critical thinking, entertainment, and it's very disposable entertainment. If you hadn't seen this episode and just jumped to another one, you really wouldn't be missing too much. But I had fun with it for what it was.
Yeah, I felt like this was just like every now and then you get the filler issue that doesn't totally suck. This was like a filler episode that didn't totally suck. It has nothing to do with the Bly Gang, even though she was a member of the Bly Gang. It's really got nothing to do with it.
But I did freeze frame and look at that picture, and I do not believe Denise Crosby is actually in that picture. I think that they just did you see it? Did you look?
I mean, I looked at it briefly. I'm watching Daily Motion illegal uploads. Probably I don't know if they're illegal uploads. They could have taken them down a million times. So I'm literally projecting on a wall to 140 inches a Daily Motion upload that's a rip from a DVD. So I'm not really sure I have the level of quality to determine to identify folks in a grainy black and white photo.
True that, but I don't believe that's actually her playing the mall in the photograph. It does. I looked at it really close. Like, that's not Denise Crosby. I can absolutely see Billy Drago. That's definitely him. I don't think that's her in the picture though.
I wouldn't be surprised. But they flash it so quickly, they're probably like, nobody's going to notice this thing. Anyway, but I did think there was just like some random stuff in this. Like we touched on it a little bit earlier. Like, it's kind of nice for the show to show how sort of these women got together from all over the world. They've all got accents from all over the world, and they've built this. They turned this ghost town into like a fully functioning city, right? They got a doctor, they got a sheriff, they got blacksmiths, right? But then at the same time, like you said, they're all like, as soon as a guy comes in, they're like, whoa, here's some men. And it's like, you kind of lose some points. And not
just a guy, that noted sex bomb, John Aston, who at that point would have been in his late 50s. They make a comment
about Bruce also.
Yeah, they do comment on Bruce, but obviously Bruce is, I don't know, it's weird. Bruce is weirdly not interested in anything in this town. He's like, he likes it on principle, but he has no sensual investment in any of this.
No, right. They don't. He doesn't have a little fling with the sheriff or anything like that, which I thought was, that's a little refreshing too, because that would have been so on the nose that Brisco comes in and sweeps the all-female town sheriff off their feet. That would have been so obvious. It's kind of counterintuitive to have the goofy professor is the one who's swooning with all these ladies. So I give it points back for that. So anyway, but there were some really good moments, like the barkeep who comes out and she's firing her shotgun at the tank. She's ready to die and sacrifice herself to save the city and stuff like there was some really like noble stuff in this episode amidst all the kookiness and weird pseudo about to be rape scene and the incest joke.
Plural.
Jokes. So yeah, I'm with you. I think that this is it's a nice little filler episode. Doesn't really tie to the story, but I was entertained. I watched it, the whole thing. I was never like, man, when are they gonna move on? It kept a pretty quick pace. Again,
I couldn't finish. We could not from start to finish do a complete episode of Stranger Things season 3 after the first few episodes. We could not make it through an entire episode without stopping and picking it up the following day. I had no problem finishing this episode, and not just because I they had a podcast, but it was fun.
I mean, are we going to turn this into Stranger Things 3-season podcast? Because
No,
you're dumb. You're an idiot. I don't understand. I thought this was one of the funner. I thought the last season took itself way too seriously when it needs to be a little goofier and funner. Now, I think they tested my goof-o-meter with the never-ending story stuff.
That was actually one of our favorite parts. I was on board for that.
It pushed it a little too far. I mean, I thought the scene was funny, but then afterwards they have like the whole ensemble cast singing it. I thought that was a little hokey. To talk more on the story, I really wish they would have given Will his moment. Like I feel like they tortured that kid for 2 seasons, 3 seasons. Yeah. And I was like, man, when is Will gonna have his, when is 11 not gonna save the day and Will's gonna do it? Right. Because Will's been put through so much, and it's sort of his spidey sense helps
exactly.
Right?
That was like the thing that he had was, he's touching the back of his neck again. Here comes the attack. It's basically, okay, we're going to telegraph supposedly for suspense, but really it's just like, we're doing this again. Okay, so yeah, poor Will.
Yeah. Other than that, though, I thought it was fun. It was a blast. And like, look, they never explained what the weird acid container stuff was. Like, I thought they were like that was like looming over part of the show when they dropped that canister and the acid burned through the floor. And then there's even a shot where they're all like walking near a room and they pan up to show you all the acid in the canisters, and it never comes back later on in the show. Little stuff like that kind of bothered me. But other than that, I thought this season was funner than the last episode, and I could let go. Like, of course, the Great Russian Threat. You can't have an 80s show without a Great Russian Threat. I didn't have any problem with any of that. Sorry. I thought this season was a blast.
Canisters of xenomorph blood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's obviously it's an alien reference, but they never really
everything is a reference. It's a collection of references. That's the entire damn show. Sorry.
I still feel they're still pulling off between the costumes, the cars. It's all still so good. I'm invested in a season 4 just based on how period correct the show is. It's not this fake, our movie's going to take place in the 80s. It's going to take place in the 80s. And it's like, okay, you put some hair gel in somebody's hair and you're saying it took place in the 80s. Like, it feels like they built that mall. Like, and I don't know if this was an old rundown mall that they decided to just, or if this was a set. Dude, that looked like an 80s mall. Like, everybody's clothes were perfect. Everybody's hair is perfect.
It wasn't the X-Men time traveling sequels where it's immediately 2014 within 5 minutes of each one of the movies. This is the 80s one. Here comes somebody whose hair is completely wrong and whose makeup is completely wrong, and it's like, oh god, yeah. I think that they go too far in the other direction with Stranger Things, where it's like, look, it's the Mr. T cereal. Did you see this Easter egg here in an Exo cooler? But at least they're putting the effort into reminding you, as opposed to just like barely acknowledging it and then moving on.
But it's still not like the freaking Goldbergs or whatever, that 80s show. It's not that bad either. I still think it's within reason. I still think that they did it. It was a little more overt in this season, but I thought it made it funner as opposed to the last season that was kind of a drag. So anyway, I enjoyed it. Welcome to Stranger Things cast. I'm a legal machine, and with me is Diablo. Almost said a bad word. Debbie Downer Frank. Stop hating things that are fun, dude. Stop hating things that are fun, dude. Just let it go, bro. Just relax, man. Enjoy something. Don't get wrapped up in the science of Stranger Things where they're going into another dimension on the reg, bro.
I guess Professor Wickwire in a previous life was Gomez Adams, and that is pretty irresistible.
Wait, what? Where did I don't know where that came from.
I'm getting it back on topic.
Huh? Say that again.
I'm getting it back on topic.
Okay. All right. Well, excellently done, I suppose. Dun, 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 dun.
Brisco! The adventures of Brisco County Jr. will continue after these messages.
The Adventures of Brisco County Jr. is brought to you by Kellogg's, the best to you each morning.
Afternoon, everybody.
Ryan! How's that baby treating you, Mr. Daly?
Like Thanos, snapping his fingers at my bank account.
In that case, how about a beer on the house?
Sure, gotta give my mouth something to do between podcasts.
Say, Ryan, I don't get how you have so much time for podcasting. Doesn't your wife want you spending time with the baby?
Would you? Truth is, I think she's a little worried about how much time I'm spending with the kid, ever since his first words were Dagobah system. Now she wants me to go out and do something mature, something productive, and most of all, something lucrative that can support the family.
So you're going to...
Podcast about Cheers, yeah. That kid's not going to start college for 18 years. I got time. Cheerscast, the podcast where everybody knows your name. Coming soon to the Fire and Water Network.
Hi, my name's Red, and I want to tell you about Transformers.
My curiosity is aroused.
More than meets the eye.
These fools worship Transformers.
Decepticons, transform and rise up.
Calling Autobots! Calling Autobots! This is a battle protocol!
Robots with emotions.
Robots who can die.
Arrest.
Silence. Now playing on fanholespodcast.blogspot.com.
Synchronized watches.
For the first time ever, Parker Lewis is now on DVD.
Not a problem.
Parker Lewis Can't Lose, Season 1.
To quote Don Henley, this is the end of the innocence.
All 26 episodes in a 4-DVD box set.
And I thought I was anal. You are, Frank. Thank you, Lewis.
Special guest stars include Ozzy Osbourne, Ray Walston, Donny Osmond, and Weird Al Yankovic.
I also do weddings and bar mitzvahs.
Whoa.
Eat now? I don't even go to this school.
Special features include new interviews with the cast, creators, and crew, and episode commentaries.
Lunch gone, still hungry.
My brother's a dead man.
Parker Lewis Can't Lose, Season 1, now on DVD.
Get me Parker Lewis!
Where? 2 o'clock, 5th period, Trice House.
Hey there, I'm Nathaniel with some exciting news about the Punch Like a Girl podcast. Oh, hey Liz, I'm just doing the promo. Tell the people about how the podcast we do together, covering graphic novels and trade collections, starring female protagonists, is moving to. And actually, I'm mansplaining again, aren't I?
Uh-huh.
Well, I can just here you go.
Punch Like a Girl is joining the Fire and Water Network, and as of October will be found on the network feed and at fireandwaterpodcast.com.
Is it okay if I just invite folks to join us in celebrating the girls who kick butt?
I think you already did.
Yes! Nailed it!
Don't worry, folks. I'll keep him in line.
Get ready for the season premiere of the show that's helped capture 262 of America's most dangerous fugitives. America's Most Wanted. It all happens on the new Fox Tuesday night.
Then, escape to paradise with the show that the LA Times calls an hour of sparkling television. With enough eccentric characters to make Northern Exposure look like the Love Boat.
You just lie back and let Savannah take care of you.
Key West.
There are definitely unseen hands at work here.
After Class of 96, 2 all-new episodes tonight on the new Fox Tuesday night.
Class of 96 in Key West starting tonight at 8 p.m. only on WNYW Fox 5.
And now back to the adventures of Brisco County Jr.
I guess this was Off the Wickwire, Warlord World, Evil Dead News, Slang Word Scott, The Hammer Strikes, Secret Wars and Beyond Podcast, Keith G. Baker, who also sent you a GIF that said, when the illegal machine tries to blame me for something Ryan Daly did, and it's the baseball player giving people like a look, an Astros player. I don't know what this GIF is.
I don't know either. I don't have it in front of me, and it was probably from like 2 months ago.
No, more like 5 or 6 months ago.
5 or 6 months ago.
Yeah. And then you wrote, blame 4 Roses and small batch, and Keith said, never, some sweet action that deserves no blame whatsoever.
Oh, man. 4 Roses small batch. Hey, if you guys like bourbon, go grab yourself some 4 Roses small batch. It's been fueling my podcasts for years.
Let's see. We also got Odell Abner Dracula, Relatively Geeky Podcast Network, Stockport Super, Lee Samp 29, Zachary McCarthy, Simone J. Lima, Nicole at Zakedsphere, Green Lantern HG, 108 Sage, Brian Mulvey, Professor Frenzy. I'm hoping I can catch everybody. Let's see. Coffee and Comics wrote, "Oh, good. I was afraid you guys stopped at the pilot." It stops and starts, but we're back. Dr. Ange, Anime Freaks, Chris at Bad Books for Beginners, Bob Buster, Dr. Pop Culture BGSU, Anthony Joseph. I don't think he has an account anymore. Daniel French, Ice in the Face, Fanholes Podcast, History of Comics on Film, Justice's First Dawn, Gregory Litchfield, Rise of King Asilas, Ice in the Face, David Golding, Jennifer DeRoss, Comics in the Golden Age, Jeffrey Brown, Doc Strange, Fritz Frankenstein, The Hoopers, Gregory Litchfield. I think I already got him. Let's see.
This is the worst social media read you have ever done in 5 years of podcasting, or however long we've been doing this.
Well, I'm literally going off of my phone, so I mean, come on. Randy Caldwell, Warlock Thanos Podcast, Randomitable, Nexus of All, DK on the Air, Nerdfix Strangers, El Romero, a.k.a. Max Romero, Christados, Longbox Crusade, Paul Matthew Carr, Webcast 411, Talk Nerdy to Me, Words and Pictures, Sean Merrick, Varangian Vigilante. I'm really late on my Wonder Woman show, so it's been a while since I've had his name up here. And let's see, anybody else? Richard Field and Rad Adventures Podcasting Network. I think that's pretty much everybody. Let's want to check Facebook right quick. I think that'd be a bit of a scroll, though.
Hold on. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Might not take too long. By the way, I wanted to see that GIF you were talking about, so I just searched "blame 4 roses" into Twitter. There are about 24 tweets where people are saying, "Don't blame me, blame 4 roses," which I thought was hilarious. And it was a GIF of George Springer, which is an excellent GIF because Georgie's the man. Go Stros. This is a Houston-based podcast. Scrolling. 1 moment. Almost there.
I don't get the tapes had side A and side B, so it's only logical that their successor would be a CD.
You don't know the alphabet? A, B, C, D?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, don't blame the meme that you didn't understand A, B, C, D. When did this episode come out?
January.
I'm almost there.
Yeah, see, the Evil Dead podcasting guys went ahead and did Brisco County as a podcast. They covered the whole series. So it definitely robbed us a bit of our momentum.
I've never heard of these guys, so it didn't rob me of anything. Yeah, I don't know if we have any. On episode 2, we had a comment from Ruth Sutherland. She says, "We enjoyed the latest episode. The heroic character of Brisco County Jr. really appeals to us, and I appreciate the good guys and bad guys are clear, and appreciated the point about the rising popularity of anti-heroes. This conversation was great. Looking forward to the next episode." Ruth. Our friends Darren and Ruth Sutherland.
Who I'll be seeing fairly soon.
And Bosk.
Wicked Boston Pawn.
Oh my God, we got chowder and racists. Let's see, I already talked about, I found the GIF and everybody was blaming 4 roses. That's social media. Should we do a little send-off to Billy Drago?
Yeah, certainly, yes.
Because he's not actually in the episode to talk about him.
No, he is.
They show him on a picture.
Right. So he's there in spirit. You know, it's almost kind of appropriate that we're doing an episode of the show that Billy Drago is only in as a reflection.
A memoriam, basically?
Yeah, sort of, kind of, yeah. Obviously our hero is swearing vengeance to get him in the episode, but generally speaking, still, he's acknowledged.
Oh, yeah. So Billy passed away, 5 days ago on the 24th? I guess we don't know when this is going to air. No. He passed away on June 24th.
It's been roughly... No, it'll be this week. No, he was... no, it wasn't that. I just saw a memoriam you had up on our Facebook page. There's like the 1st.
Yeah, it was June 24th is when he passed away. I saw a J and I was thinking July. Yeah, it was June. Obviously, it was not 5 days ago. What is wrong with me?
Yeah, you put up the acknowledgement on July the 1st. But I've been fond of Billy Drago for years. He was one of the great villains of the 1980s. I felt that he was sort of the Jack Palance of the 80s, even though Jack Palance was still around. But he was taking the roles that Jack Palance used to do and definitely had that same sort of serpentine quality. He was just a great villain. I don't know. Do we know what he passed from?
Oh, you know what? That's a good question.
And I'll throw in Mike Peacock and Max Traver and Ryan Daly as people who acknowledged the passing of Billy Drago on the Facebook page.
Stroked out, man.
Stroke, yeah.
Yep, had a stroke.
And fairly young, too. What late 60s, early 70s, something like that?
Like mid-70s, 73.
73, okay.
It's a little early to stroke out, but not... I mean, he's a male.
Yeah,
so
he's in the right age range, yeah.
Yeah.
And to be honest, too, I mean, he used to pop up on Charmed, and that was only maybe a decade or so after Adventures of Brisco County, and he looked kind of rougher, too. So I don't know if there were maybe some comorbidities there or something.
Yeah, but I mean, his features lent himself to age a little.
When you're
not
that
creepy,
lean,
but
when you're that lean too, and he had pronounced features, if you lose any additional weight, or if you smoke or something like that, it does tend to really show up because you don't have anything to absorb the mileage, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, like his pronounced, like really strong cheekbones.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, if you lose weight, they're going to start to look,
well, and again,
you're not going to look emaciated, but you know what I mean? It's going to give you more of a, oh man, I'm trying not to say things that are going to disrespect the guy, but words are popping in my head that I probably shouldn't use. So I'm not going to
let's not do that. But I mean, speaking of Jack Palance, he's another guy who had a very smooth face when he was younger. And then, of course, they made a big deal about how leathery he was in the City Slickers movies. So, the years take their toll.
Absolutely, man. So there's our bad guy, Billy Drago. Is it Drago or Drago? It's Drago,
I think it's Drago.
Right?
I believe it's Drago.
Yeah.
I've never heard it pronounced any other way, but I don't know. I can't honestly tell you when I would have heard anybody ever pronounce it. It might be one of those things where I've just been saying it for 30 years and nobody ever corrected me. So I believe it's Billy Drago, though. But he was in like Vamp, and he was in one of the Delta Force movies. He was in Untouchables, which we've talked about in the past. So he was, especially in the mid 80s through to about the mid 90s, he was just consistently doing villainous roles and always excelled at it. He was just great at that.
The Hills Have Eyes. He was in that.
Oh, he was in the remake. Yeah, the one from the early 2000s. He didn't get. It wasn't much of a role though, unfortunately. Me and Mr. Fixer saw that theatrically, if I remember correctly. I mean, that's in Pussycat.
Yeah. I think I was there.
Were you on that? Like, I wasn't sure if you were on that one.
I was there on that one too.
That's the one where I got really upset because I was saying there's a big right wing movie and all kind of thing. Typical for me.
Yeah, even way back then. And let me see. He was also in Children of the Corn Genesis. Huh?
I don't think I saw that.
Children of the Corn. Yeah, me neither. I don't think anybody else did. But that's 2011. That's fairly recently.
Yeah. I mean, he worked for most of his life. Yeah.
I mean, it looks like he was active from 79 all the way through 2014. He had 2 films in 2014. I mean, not anything huge, but I mean, that's not bad. Yeah, anyway, I don't want to dwell on too much. Sucks the dude died. I feel some sadness about that since we're going to be covering the show over the next. How many total episodes were there? 24?
Something along those lines, yeah.
Yeah, because he's going to be in it, basically through the whole thing. So here's to you, Billy.
Now, stay tuned for scenes from next week's Brisco County Jr.
I'm Ruth.
And I'm Darren of the Rad Adventures Network.
We're a married couple who enjoy great stories of all kinds, including adventures, mysteries, science fiction, and fantasy.
Please join us for a variety of podcasts focused on a range of pop culture topics.
Trekker Talk is about 23rd century bounty hunter Mercy St. Clair from the comic Trekker by writer and artist Ron Randall. It's a blend of classic sci-fi adventures and noir mysteries set in a retro future.
Xenozoic Xenophiles is about the comic Xenozoic Tales by writer and artist Mark Schultz. It's a post-apocalyptic adventure series filled with Cadillacs and dinosaurs.
Warlord Worlds covers the many comics of writer and artist Mike Grell, including The Warlord, John Sable, Green Arrow, and the Legion of Superheroes.
Sensational Sleuths, where we talk about favorite mystery novels, movies, and TV shows.
Fantastic Fantasies, where we share our favorite fantasy films and books.
And Amazing Adventures, where we discuss action-packed adventure stories.
Listen on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Or visit radadventuresnetwork.com to find all of our shows and links to our social media pages.
That's RAD, R-A-D, which is short for Ruth and Darren.
Well, my name is Ryan Ashley. I am the Director of Operations here at Four Roses Distillery, and I'm responsible for the day-to-day operation of the distillery, and that includes everything from the raw materials being chosen and coming in to the distillate that leaves to go to our Cox's Creek warehouse facility. What makes Four Roses just different from other bourbon distilleries and so unique is first that we use 2 separate mash bills. We have 2 separate recipes. In addition to that, we have 5 proprietary yeast strains. So when you apply those different yeast strains to the different mash bills, we create 10 uniquely different bourbons. And those bourbons are cooked, fermented, distilled, and aged separately. So they really are 10 distinctly different bourbons. The other part of that makes us so unique and so different from any other bourbon distillery is the fact that we utilize single-story warehousing for our bourbons. So we get a much more consistent temperature throughout the year, meaning that the bourbons are going to age very consistently, very evenly, and at the highest quality possible.
Attention all personnel. New from the Fire and Water Podcast Network, it's MASHcast. Hosted by MASH mega fan Rob Kelly and a rotating cast of VIPs, MASHcast analyzes, episode by episode, the greatest television series of all time, MASH. Find MASHcast on fireandwaterpodcast.com.
Jocularity!
15 years ago, today, you led us out of the darkness. You commanded the greatest rescue armada in history. Then, the unimaginable. What did that cost you? Your faith? Your faith in us? Your faith in yourself. Tell us, why did you leave Starfleet, Admiral?
Friday, Brisco meets up with a ghost from his past.
Weren't you killed in a gunfight? I was only gut shot. I'm stronger now, with less appetite.
And runs into an old flame.
There's a fire.
I know.
No, in the barn.
The Adventures of Brisco County Jr. An all-new episode next Friday at 8, 7 Central.